War is supposed to be about tanks, planes, and high-tech weapons. But what happens when you're out of ammo, cut off from supply, or just desperate to survive? You get creative. You use whatever you can find, kitchen knives, bicycle parts, even old bed frames, to build weapons that are as dangerous as they are ingenious. Today, we're diving into 9 insane World War II weapons soldiers built from household junk. These are the stories of ordinary men who turned trash into tools of war, and sometimes changed the course of a battle with nothing but grit and a little bit of luck. Number 1. The Molotov cocktail. Let's start with the classic. The Molotov cocktail wasn't invented in a lab. It was born in the snowy forests of Finland during the Winter War. When Soviet tanks rolled in and the Finns ran out of anti-tank guns, they grabbed empty vodka bottles, filled them with gasoline, and stuffed a rag in the top. Light, throw, and watch the tank crew panic as fire poured through the hatches. The name: a sarcastic jab at Soviet Foreign Minister Vyacheslav Molotov, who claimed the Soviets were dropping food, not bombs, on Finland. The Finns called the bombs Molotov bread baskets, and their firebombs a drink to go with the bread. But the Molotov wasn't just a Finnish trick. British Home Guard units, Soviet partisans, and even American GIs in the Pacific used Molotovs when they ran out of grenades or needed to stop a tank with nothing but what they had on hand. In Warsaw, Polish resistance fighters made thousands of Molotovs in secret workshops, using whatever bottles they could scrounge from bombed-out bars and kitchens. Number 2. The Sten gun, Britain's garage submachine gun. When the Nazis threatened to invade Britain, the government needed a cheap, fast way to arm the Home Guard. Enter the Sten gun, a submachine gun so simple it could be built in a garage. The barrel was a length of steel pipe. The stock? Sometimes just a bent piece of metal. The trigger group was stamped out of sheet steel. The Sten was ugly, unreliable, and sometimes dangerous to its user. But it was cheap, less than $10 to make, and could be assembled from junkyard parts. Over 4 million were built, and they armed everyone from British paratroopers to French resistance fighters. The Sten's simplicity was its genius. In occupied Europe, resistance groups built their own versions in bicycle shops and barns. In Denmark, a single blacksmith made over 2,000 Stens for the underground. In France, the Maquis used Stens to ambush German convoys, then melted into the woods before the enemy could respond. Number 3. The sticky bomb. Desperate times call for desperate measures. When British soldiers needed a way to stop German tanks in 1940, they invented the sticky bomb. It was literally a glass flask filled with nitroglycerin, covered in a sticky adhesive, and wrapped in a sock. The idea: run up to a tank, slap the bomb on, pull the pin, and run like hell. It worked, sometimes. The bomb stuck to muddy tanks, but not always to dry ones. And if the sock tore or the glue failed, you were in trouble. Still, it was better than nothing, and a few brave souls used them to knock out panzers in North Africa and Normandy. The sticky bomb was so dangerous to use that some soldiers called it the suicide bomb. But in the chaos of retreat, it was sometimes the only thing standing between a tank and a massacre. Number 4. The Bean-O grenade. American soldiers grew up playing baseball, so why not use that skill in battle? The Bean-O grenade was designed to be thrown just like a baseball. It was round, about the size of a softball, and had a timed fuse. The idea was that any GI could pick it up and hurl it with deadly accuracy. The Bean-O wasn't perfect. It sometimes exploded too soon, and the fuse was tricky. But in the chaos of Normandy and the hedgerows of France, it gave American soldiers a familiar weapon in an unfamiliar world. The Bean-O was just one of many baseball grenades used in World War II. Some GIs even practiced with real baseballs before going into combat, just to keep their arms in shape. Number 5. The K-ration can landmine. When supplies ran low, American soldiers got creative. They took empty K-ration cans, those little tins that once held cheese or ham, filled them with explosives, nails, and whatever shrapnel they could find, and buried them as improvised landmines. These can mines weren't as powerful as factory-made mines, but they could maim or kill an unwary enemy. Sometimes the simplest junk could become a deadly trap. In the Pacific, Marines used similar tricks, rigging up coconut shells, tin cans, and even empty beer bottles as booby traps. Anything that could hold a charge and a few nails became a weapon. Number 6. The bicycle bomb. The French resistance were masters of improvisation. When they needed to sabotage German convoys, they hid explosives inside bicycle frames. A resistance fighter would ride up to a bridge or a rail line, park the bike, and walk away. Minutes later, the bomb would detonate, destroying the target and sowing confusion. Sometimes the bikes were rigged to explode if tampered with, turning a simple theft into a deadly surprise for an unsuspecting German soldier. Bicycles were also used to smuggle weapons, messages, and even people past German checkpoints. In Denmark, resistance couriers carried pistols and grenades in their handlebars, ready to fight or flee at a moment's notice. Number 7. The flame fugace. With the threat of German invasion looming, the British Home Guard prepared a nasty surprise: the flame fugace. It was nothing more than a 40-gallon drum filled with gasoline and oil, buried at the roadside and wired to a detonator. When triggered, it would spray a wall of burning fuel across the road, turning a tank column into a firestorm. The flame fugace was cheap, easy to make, and terrifyingly effective. Over 50,000 were installed across Britain, though thankfully they were never needed. In the Soviet Union, partisans used similar tactics, rigging up barrels of fuel and explosives to ambush German convoys in the forests. The sight of a road suddenly erupting in flames was enough to make even the bravest tank crew think twice. Number 8. The bed spring armor. When German Panzerfausts started knocking out Soviet tanks, Red Army crews got creative. They welded old bed springs, chicken wire, and scrap metal onto their turrets as improvised armor. The idea was to detonate the shaped charge warhead before it hit the real armor. It looked ridiculous, tanks bristling with rusty springs and wire. But it worked. Some German anti-tank teams called these bed spring tanks and learned to fear them. Improvised armor wasn't just a Soviet trick. In North Africa, British tankers bolted sandbags, spare tracks, and even concrete slabs to their vehicles, hoping to survive one more hit. Number 9. The pipe gun. When you have nothing, you build something. In occupied Europe and the Pacific, resistance fighters made pipe guns, single-shot pistols built from plumbing pipes, rubber bands, and nails. They were crude, dangerous, and often as likely to hurt the user as the enemy. But they could kill a sentry, steal a real weapon, and start a rebellion. The British even dropped thousands of Liberator pistols, cheap, stamped metal guns, behind enemy lines, hoping to spark uprisings. Sometimes, all you need is a trigger and a little hope. In the Philippines, guerrillas built shotguns from water pipes and used them to ambush Japanese patrols. In Poland, the Błyskawica submachine gun was designed to be built in secret workshops, using parts scavenged from factories and farms. What do these weapons have in common? They show us that war isn't just about generals and factories. It's about ordinary people, forced to improvise, who turn junk into survival, and sometimes into victory. Which of these insane inventions surprised you the most? Have you heard of other improvised weapons from World War II or any other war? Maybe your family has a story about making do with nothing but grit and a little luck. Drop your thoughts, questions, or stories in the comments below. I read every one, and your perspective helps keep these memories alive. And if you want to keep exploring the wildest, weirdest, and most human stories from history, don't stop here. There's more to discover. Just check out the next video on your screen.